Today's match is bound to be an exciting one. Today, spawning as a blue Cortex commander, the #1 on the leaderboards for team games, goes by the name of Indiclub. Indiclub here going to be showing us what he's got going up against the #3 on the leaderboard here, ____. Somebody told me the pseudonym that this, or the rather the real name of this player, but I've completely forgotten it. So for now, _ is going to be our red team leader, also playing as Cortex. I realized while choosing this match, the pros play so fast. Every single replay I found was under 10 minutes. This one looked like it was a little bit longer. So we're gonna see what they get up to here on Hela's Basin. So we've got #1 versus #3. Should be an extremely high level match. Now right off the bat, we are going for a fairly standard build right now from our _ hero in red. Gonna be going for those wind turbines, gonna be going for those metal extractors, gonna be going eventually into a bot lab. We do have a much more interesting strategy over here on the blue team though. Instead of starting over on this sea lane, we are instead going to get into the water right here. Now this is a really cool decision because obviously it means you get those boats out in the water way quicker than your opponent. You can see Nace, playing this a little more standardly, is going to get there eventually, but still has no lab in the water, whereas Choice already has some ships up and running. Now, this is tricky because if you lose this, then obviously you're throwing away tons and tons of theoretical metal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these can't be taken later by, for instance, Ural, who could just push the front lines or build tech or do either, and will have a tremendous metal advantage for it. So I think this is a really cool play. Now, typically, this southern lane is where actually most of the focus is. This southern lane can definitely cripple each team a whole lot more because, of course, with a capital ship, you can shell away at this geothermal, oftentimes doing critical damage to whatever commander happens to be living up on this high ground here. You can also shell away at both front lines and this sideline player. So that's 4 different bases that you can take out with a capital ship. Means that that place is really, really important. Now, we already have dolphins and gunships and all sorts of other stuff. Sorry, not gunships. Stealthy patrol boats / light anti-air / sonar. Quite a lengthy title on the skater right there. It is just the default anti-air, the T1 anti-air right here. But the dolphin and the skater having a fabulous time blasting away this base. The second dolphin joins in. GG, cries out the green commander, and I think I totally agree. Yeah, Nace, 4-stuff line right here, going to have to retreat back. That lab is already going to go down, and that is 600 metal right out of the piggy bank right here of the pink commander. That hurts quite a lot. Now, how do we transition out of this right here? Obviously, sending a constructor around to build all these metal extractors is going to be very valuable. Sending a constructor to go claim these metal islands over here are going to be very important moving forward. This is a really cool strategy, though. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this played a whole lot more often than we currently do. Yeah, there we go. We've handed over a constructor here, so eventually we're going to build all these metal extractors, and you can see Ural flying around to capture these ones that are left on the land. You do want to get those, by the way. Those are very valuable. 4.3 metal extractors, definitely well worth obtaining, but certainly a little bit tricky now that the green player has completely won the naval lane. Up on the northern side as well. Ooh, very careful with the transport. The commander trying to find an angle right here, but that anti-air boat is very threatening to those T1 transports. 3 shots to take them down. Similarly over here, Fiddler has been transported over to this side, going to use the commander to claim this metal extractor here, and then also put down a torpedo launcher. I don't mind it, but the mobile army, or the navy right here for no air is so mobile as an armada commander that I really don't think that's a critical torpedo launcher. In other words, I think going around it is going to be completely viable right here for the powder blue commander. So I can't help but wonder if maybe just sending a submarine through the southern side and directly into the base of the orange commander would completely shut him offline. Now, I've been neglecting the middle of the map here a little bit because the navy strategies have been so choice. But we do have a couple of blitzes trying to run by. Incisor counterparts, going to blast them apart. Way more incisors right here than there are blitzes, so definitely going to be cleaned up eventually. It's only a matter of when. Oh, well, okay. A little bit of an APM stall right there. Uncharacteristic for players at this skill level, but there we go. A blitz does manage to break through. It'll actually do some critical damage right here to Choice, who is going for one of those most expensive ships while needing desperately the economy. It'll catch the constructor over here, as well as eventually that metal extractor that was halfway built, and the one that was already built. So that is quite a bit of damage right there already going down against the green commander. The only offset for that, of course, being the fact that he's already won his lane. No problem with the lane here, so expanding fairly greedy, I expect to see here. Yeah, probably need to start up a construction boat and eventually get this all together. We do have a destroyer coming up right here to start harassing the pink commander as we finally see enough torpedo launchers to thwart the naval advances right here from the green commander, but the destroyer, of course, outranges those. So eventually, I think we're going to find ourselves in a nice little spot for Choice. Incisors getting aggressive on the front line, trying to snag those missile trucks whenever they can. Definitely a good idea. Those missile trucks, very, very snowball-y, right? So shutting them down early, very important. Orange Commander doing a great job of capturing the seas over here. You know what? Maybe this torpedo launcher was more critical than I gave it credit for. Our Armada has no way of dealing with those relatively cheaply. Cortex can build missile boats, and they can actually outrange them. Neither of these commanders Cortex, by the way, which is a little bit interesting for the Navy. I feel like prototypically we see most naval commanders going for Cortex. Cool to see some strategies that don't revolve around it. Grunt's going to jump on top of all these blitzes, blasting them down on laser fire, and overall, definitely an efficient trade right there for underscores our 52 true scale red leader. Gonna be more than happy with all that. Of course, rebuilding the metal extractors is no tremendous feat. Send a constructor for it and it should be all good. Resurrecting all this, also important, and we already have the build power, so it's not like that's a major concern. This base is under fire right now, and we do have the torpedo launchers knocked down, so that means that the lesser boats can move in here, the dolphins and the frigates, all that good stuff. We're having a little debate right there. Are you doing good? Tilda, not really. That's pretty funny. Frigate here needs to be repaired. This is such a tough fight. Yeah, the destroyer can shell away for free, essentially, right here, making this very, very uncomfortable for our poor, unfortunate Powder Pink commander. Luckily, K-Corp has taken the attention that was pulled away from them and used it to get into the naval field. They built some build power up on this high ground, so that's a really nice move. And eventually, these forces will reinforce over here. Eventually, overwhelming Choice. Choice did not expand greedily enough, I don't think, and is going to be punished by total obliteration of the fleet. We do have a couple of dolphins here. You do have to be careful with those, but there's so many frigates on the field already. We're up to 4. 2 destroyers against 4 frigates. I'm going to give it to the frigates. That is, of course, with the caveat that they can actually attack the destroyers. Destroyers with immense range. There we go. Dolphins jumping on top of the frigates, exactly where you want them. Activating that flanking bonus, but already the reinforcements have arrived. Rip, cries out the green commander, and indeed, I think that situation is starting to look like it's going towards the other foot. LLT is falling under fire right here from a couple of Wolverines. Not a critical mass, I would say, but the missile trucks are definitely getting there. Maybe not. We've got 3 of them. We've also got tons of Janus. Janus definitely much more imposing here than the, than those missile trucks are going to be. I guess they're a missile truck of a different sort of a variety. Now, all of this wreckage is, of course, just frigates that were blasting things apart right here. So, at the very least, Choice has the opportunity to rebuild, or at the very least, reclaim that metal. But you can see, with no build power and no energy right here, the scaling, the play was phenomenal. The scaling, unfortunately, didn't match the cadence. This is a thing I fall into all the time, hitting a classic E-stall on the naval field, and just like that, you can see this base will be overwhelmed as the frigates jump on top of it. No more ships will be produced right now. Down goes the lab. Beautiful counterattack right here from the red team. Doing a fabulous job of making sure to constantly be keeping enough... oh, no energy. No energy here for Skag. Oh, that was close. Okay, commander goes down. I think that's a worthwhile trade. 1 metal extractor, 1 anti-air tower, and 1 LLT go down. Definitely going to be worth it for K-Corp, who now has tons and tons of metal and is going to be feeding it back. Looks like we degunned the lab over here with that commander, so that's a cheeky play to slow down the advance of the naval players here, but definitely not going to keep them out of the water for good. Meanwhile, the southern side devolving into a much more complex naval battle. Wouldn't mind seeing all those resources extracted from this field sent on down to the southern seas so that no air can use them for production. You can see Powder Blue Commander here stalling quite heavily on metal at the time being. Usually, naval players are almost always stalled for metal. Those naval vessels being quite expensive, at least in the mass department. Yeah, tricky situation right here for Choice. No great alternatives for how to maneuver out of this. You can always start up another lab and try and move that way. You can always go for torpedo spam, which is what we're seeing right here. But no matter what you do, really that commander is dead meat, because as soon as a single destroyer comes out, there's not really anything a commander can do to kite against that, especially not when the energy reserves are looking so poor. Now, that being said, frigate's not going to be able to kill these metal extractors under the water, so it is sort of nice in that sense. Ural trying to help out his teammate here by building in the cove to try and rebuild this navy, but again, no energy available right now. Wouldn't mind seeing some energy temporarily handed over to the navy players just to make sure that we can close out this northern section right here. I believe it's still winnable for the blue team if they can put their mass in the water. If they can't, though, it's going to be a good game. Torpedo launcher off on the coast, doing tricks on it, doing loop-de-loops and whatnot. Interesting deployment right there of those self-seeking bombs, but eventually I think it'll shut most of this down here. Destroyers here are quite powerful, obviously, and plus a repair, they become virtually indestructible. virtually, keyword there, as we watch one of them fall and the frigates retreat with their lives. Just barely with their lives, but with their lives nonetheless. The last HP is the only one that truly matters, as we're starting to get into a little bit of T2 on the front lines. We have a whole bunch of fiends getting ready to pull the trigger right now. There they go. Ready to, oh, maybe not. We're working on a tremor right now, which is an interesting choice. A cool one, certainly. This is a very aesthetic moment to capture right here. You see the tremor firing away, satisfying as always. Cool command right there to set the target over here so that we make sure that it's constantly firing even if it's trying to move. Beautiful, beautiful screen cap that will be. The fiends running around in the foreground, the commander running for his life, and the T1 units heavily impacted by the impulse of the tremor, slowing them, stunning them, making them easy targets. Missile trucks moving forward, Janus included. The grunts are going to walk directly into the tremor fire. Not ideal, certainly. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. You can see Indiclub asking his teammate to charge. I think we're waiting for these riot tanks specifically to move forward. Don't want to move forward while the tremor is firing away, though. Obviously, that's a recipe for disaster, to say the very least. K-Corp doing a fabulous job over here. Zipping around the battlefield up to the northern side, and we can see a destroyer has been pumped out, and that's going to be to contest the destroyer here for Ural, and Ural's commander is going to be in quite a pickle here. Destroyer going down to the frigate fire, firing away and blasting apart that very expensive ship. Not as expensive as the Cortex variant, but still expensive nonetheless. There's that torpedo launcher firing away again. That thing has probably gotten more value than most of the Navy combined right here for our purple hero. Choice still trying their best, but it's a very, very dire situation. Without any way to really expand the economy at this point, there's virtually no hope that this commander's ever going to win the naval battle, but the best they can do is stall and hope that somebody else can solve the problem. Maybe some T2 air might be a handy solution. Maybe maybe something like a little bit of hovercraft shenanigans, some of those T3 hovercraft, anything like that might be an effective means of evening the odds there. Multiple tremors firing away. I guess our seafoam green commander here definitely has an aesthetic, and the aesthetic is more DACA firing away over here. I had a comment actually ask me what DACA meant. For anybody who, I guess, is not familiar with Warhammer 40k, or I guess the internet in general, I thought DACA was a more generalized thing, but maybe it's just Warhammer 40k. DACA refers to the sound that a machine gun makes when it rattles off multiple rounds. DACA, 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 that sort of thing. You get the idea. It's a very easy image to picture. Tremor's the king of the DACA. Essentially more bullets per minute than any other weapon I can imagine. Miniature calamities mounted on a truck chassis. You'd better bet that they're pretty powerful. An epic siege unit, certainly, but also, I would say, an area denial unit. Yeah, they're very good for targeting certain boxes and making sure that nothing exists in that box anymore. They're very good for turning directions of the map into glass, and that's always a very, very powerful unit to have in your catalog. Hundreds of ducks marching across the sea right here. I love this transition, actually, from the blue commander, who was supporting the front, but realized this is going to be a long, drawn-out battle, and probably not where most effectively our metal can be spent, and instead decides to invest in some of those aquatic, underwater-dwelling, well, water boys. And there they go. Ravaging this forward production facility, which was a cool move, by the way, by Fiddler, who has so much metal out on the map right now. It is definitely overwhelming the forces of the Powder Blue Commander. We do certainly have a couple of Dolphins running by, though, so that's cool to see. Ducks also continuing to be a nuisance. Ducks fairly resilient. Definitely resistant to these depth charges here, as you can see. Takes quite a lot of them to bring down even a single one of those ducks. Makes the destroyers fairly inefficient against them. Bulls charging forward, but finding only the withering fire of the Pounders, impulsing them, the Fiends burning them, and of course the Tremors, with their never-ceasing barrage of bullets. That was actually the target right there of sending those units in. A tremendous sacrifice to lose so many units just to kill those Tremors, but probably worth it for the fact that those Tremors have near unlimited potential for gaining value as they continue to dismantle forces. Ducks stepping out of the water here. Actually becoming slightly less efficient as they step out of the water, at least against naval units anyways. Their heavy lasers are nowhere near as powerful as their torpedo. Quite a funny little unit, the Duck. Extremely effective though, so that's obviously something to consider. Tremendous damage on both sides of the Navy right here. The naval battle, by the way, has been thoroughly won on the northern side here. Choice actually escaping with his life, which is surprising. I would have imagined this commander would have paid for this transgression into the Pink Sea with at least their life. Apparently not the case. We do have a lab coming up over here on the high ground, by the way. Looks like Ural was boxed in over here and lost his commander. But at the very least, we do have a T2 lab coming up. These torpedoes doing a hop, skip, and a jump right there. Very odd. Not sure what they're trying to achieve right there, but just kind of bouncing around like nobody's business. All right, we'll take it. Over on the middle of the map, Persecutor has been set up. This is a Persecutor with 0 kills. Oh, this was the one I was probably thinking of. This Persecutor probably got tremendous value before being blasted apart. We'll have to wait and see how this one does. Scorpion turret coming up here as well. Is it worth investing in all this static defense, though, when you know that your opponent is leaning heavily on those tremor fires? Ooh, looks like we have the printers enabled here as well as the siege breakers. Okay, cool stuff. I had no idea this was enabled. I figured the top level pros wouldn't be playing with any sort of variations. We know they don't like to have fun. It's all rules and books, and most importantly, DSDR, probably more than anything else. Apparently, we're switching things up here. We're adding some of the extra units, some of the additional unit settings, which you can find in the advanced settings tab. And we're going to be playing with some of those cool ones, namely the Siege Breaker, which is super, super cool. We've seen the printer before. The printer, very neat. It's essentially just mobile build power. Really cool for supporting an army like this, especially an army that includes mammoths. So I'd love to see the synergies here between these different compositions. It's one thing to build a cool composition yourself. It's another thing to build a composition that matches your teammates. That's just some next level power. Some next level plays that I absolutely expect from these top level pros here playing against each other. The mammoths are on the run as quick and as fast as they can, i.e. about the speed of a turtle, if a turtle could sprint. Sheldon having a field day, blasting apart this poor mammoth. Bulwark also contributing heavily. Oh, sorry, not the Bulwark. It looked like it was the Bulwark because it was a Starlight behind the shell of the Bulwark. Obviously, Pulsars here, or sorry, Starlights here. Very viable weapon against the, ooh, love those Siege Breakers. Sorry, interrupting myself because those Siege Breakers are so badass. They're in their overcharge mode right there, which makes them fire a... Oh, hold on, what was the name for it? It has an epic name. Overcharged Dread Shot Ion Accelerator. There it is, and plus a big old laser beam. Very comparable to what the Cataphragm does, except it's actually good. It's not tremendous, but it's pretty expensive actually. But it's very, very good. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It is a heavy, long-range destroyer, a siege breaker through and through. Essentially a Cortex variant of the Starlight. It's kind of funny to see them next to each other here. I wonder if they have the same explosivity as the Starlights. I really feel like they should. Yeah, maybe something these Starlights could teach the siege breakers how to go boom when they die. You can see the Starlight explodes quite dramatically when it dies. Makes it unfortunately quite poor when you spam too many of them out because they become their own worst enemy. Well, mammoths. Rapid deployment via the Skyhook Assault Heavy Transport. Love to see that play. We saw that a little while ago on Supreme Isthmus, but I love to see that deployed throughout other games here, just to show its viability. And moving these mammoths, I mean, a Herculean effort to say the least, but the Skyhook going to undertake it. I shouldn't say Herculean. There's a unit called the Hercules. That's the T1 transport, so gotta be careful about that. Ooh, bombing run very close to taking out that advanced Geo. That's a clincher for sure. Definitely indicative that maybe the red team should think about upgrading their anti-air defenses, or of course go for a Prude, one of those Armada T2 safe geothermal, safe advanced geothermals. Of course, you make a little bit less energy, but while you have the geothermal up, you can build fusions and all that sort of stuff to supplement it, and eventually spare yourself from total geothermal annihilation after that thing goes boom to just a couple of bombers. You saw 2 bombers deploying half their bombs manage to bring that thing down to about 30% HP. Very, very low. I want to see more siege breakers. They come out of the T2 Cortex laboratory here, and there you go. You can see them, the siege breaker. What an awesome unit. They're in their overcharge mode, by the way, in case you were curious why they have 2 modes. They have an overcharge mode and they have a regular mode. They're like regular modes, sort of makes them fire the same as the modded cataphracts, the tweak units cataphracts, the turbo laser cataphracts, if you're familiar with those, but essentially it's like a blast energy. You can think of the Saber, the T-1.5 seaplane gunship for Armada. Very, very similar in nature to that. Has a little bit of a longer lock-on time. Obviously the numbers are different, but you get the idea if you can picture the Saber firing away. Catapult has been sent to the front lines here. That marks the first T3 unit going to hit the battlefields. At this point we have, whoa, Commander death over here on this side. Yeah, it looks like we had a cheeky commander run by. trying to sneak into the base over here will be shot down, and that's going to be a handy bit of metal over here as we start to see a couple of salamanders also moving forward. Lovely stuff. We've got some submarines off the coast here to guard it, by the way. Always cool to see. K-Corp marching forward. Ooh, K-Corp goes down to the Lightning Tower Beamer Wombo combo. That's a high DPS combo if I've ever seen it, as we continue to scale our production over here on these northern islands. Love to see this. Sticking in the game no matter what. That's epic. Always cool to see. One of the trademark symbols of the pros playing is always that regardless of how down it seems to get, if there's even a slight chance of victory, they'll stick into the game, continue fighting. Massive shuriken pull over here, completely turning the tides of this battle. My goodness, that was a tremendous shuriken pull. I'm understating how efficient the shuriken pull was right here. Completely shut down every destroyer in the fleet for the Orange Commander. Tons and tons of frigates available, and they all just took a fabulously efficient fight right here. Res subs should be, oh well, they are hard at work eating all this, except it's for the Orange Commander. And now the Orange Commander was forced to spam out a bunch of these light units right here, dumping their metal into light anti-air, which obviously is not going to protect too fabulously against a whole bunch of frigates right now. Well, that was a cool play. Definitely very nice for the Cyan Commander, keeping in mind the Navy, taking advantage of whatever opportunities that are available here. A little concerned because so much of this metal is going back to Fiddler here, which does obviously mean that a large Navy is underway. We do have the T2 gantry up, by the way. We also went for the advanced torpedo launcher, which will make very short work of these T1 boats, so you do have to be very careful about that. Frigate's very powerful, but can't see under the water. We have a citizen's arrest off here. You stick him up. No, you stick him up. That's hilarious. Yeah, obviously the orange one is going to win as it has higher health. Very easy one to determine there. And our front line is in shambles. Maroon Commander. Singular goal in mind here, triple fusion strat. I'm happy to see it. I've been dabbling in the fusions, the multiple fusions as opposed to the going for aphises. I've been dabbling in that as well myself, and it seems to work really, really well. You can start pumping out, for instance, this sort of a thing with multiple units being spammed out of T1 labs really efficiently, or of course you can go for some of those T2 units. You basically get it all underway a whole hell of a lot quicker. It's a really, really cool idea. Definitely glad that we investigated that, because I wondered about that for a long time, but somebody finally sat down and did the maths, and it turns out fusion's very, very worthwhile. They're not a waste of metal to go for them if you want to scale your economy that way. Whoa, a little bit of a pause right there as we load some new graphics. All right. A little bit of drawing going on in the backline right here, but anyways, big old swarm colliding with each other here. You can see the maroon units clashing against the units right here of the, well, everybody. On the blue team, we've got some lavender, we've got some seafoam, we've got some blue. Everybody and their mother is marching towards the front lines to do their duty. And here we are. Now T1 spam's colliding with each other. Definitely not the most interesting thing in the world. Feels like a low-tech kind of an engagement. I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but it feels it just feels wasteful, right? But on some scale, it is epic to watch, just because of that level of casual waste. The never-ending machine of war rages on, sending the pawns to their doom in the front lines, destined to kill one soldier before falling to the heavy plasma fire of heavy units, wondering what they were doing there in the first place. Are we too far off topic? Maybe we're a little too far off topic. Orange is looking commanding after this point. Was allowed a brief glimpse of time. There was a single sliver of opportunity right there wherein the blue commander could have jumped on top of all these boats and probably gotten the blue player, at least the T1 lab, knocked out of the water here. Not going to be the case right now. I'd love to see a self-D. Very cheeky when you can manage to pull that off, but if you can, it's very worthwhile. Self-destructing your commander underneath your Navy's fleet just to make sure that you're trading it out for something valuable. Not going to be necessary, though, here. These lightning boats are ravaging the frigates right here. Basically the perfect counter to this semi-light, this sort of medium-armored Navy for the blue commander, and that's going to be tons and tons of metal falling to the depths of the seas. Just like that, I do believe that will be the killing blow that the orange commander makes in securing this ocean. There we go. Yeah, light anti-air are going to get to work on those shuriken. We learned our lesson and included tons and tons of light anti-air here, and at this point, they will be blasted out of the skies with ruthless efficiency. Brilliantly done right here by Fiddler. A tremendous fight from no air, but definitely well played by Fiddler. This island over here falling under the barrage of a whole bunch of ships and whatnot over here. We have snipers moving over in this direction as well to try and pick off some of these boats. Always tricky to try and figure out the proper way to deal with this engagement. As you can see it, trying to blast away whatever it can. Yeah, there we go. Sharpshooter manages to fire away at something. Doesn't exactly know where that missile boat is. That's the ideal target. Platypus coming up. I don't mind the platypus, but you're going to need a lot of them to break this navy. Obviously a vulnerable position here. Going to be very tricky for that commander to make anything of it. Ooh, yeah, we did switch to a brood. Lovely stuff. I figured after that first bombing run, it'd be wise to. Glad to see that we did indeed change over to a brood rather than trying to keep the advanced geo going. With the lackluster air defense of the first one, you just know that it's probably going to be better off if you opt for the safe option here. Now, siege breakers theoretically should be extremely powerful against T3. I didn't get a chance to see them here, but obviously they fit the bill. Long range, high single target DPS. Basically perfect for dealing with any of those T3 units, which is good in my opinion. I think Cortex is kind of lacking that. The resign vote goes up as Indie Club yields to the number 3 player on the leaderboards here. Apparently willing to concede this front line to the firepower of the T3. You can see without T3 on the front line of their own, it's going to be ridiculously difficult to hold this. Bulwark trying its very best to deal with all of this. There is demons on the front here as well. Those starlights are blasting apart with ruthless efficiency. This whole thing is just a brutal war machine right here. Nice D-gun from the blue commander. Gonna take some heavy damage for it. Will manage to stay alive. We want those catapults badly. The tremors firing away do hurt. Kind of a weird interaction for sure. Ooh, commander goes down right there. That commander was the last bastion against the heavy T3 moving forward. The Shivas, for sure. Moving on, I'm not sure that there's any capable defense that isn't T3. And indeed, looks like the blue team agrees and decides that with the red team's win on both of the high seas, as well as overwhelming pressure in the middle of the map, their timer is up. A brilliant play right here from Choice in the Navy. Unfortunately, didn't pan out as they were expecting, but I still have high hopes that that could be a reasonably efficient strategy right there. I'd love to see it find some more. Sure hope you enjoyed. I know I sure did. Love watching the pros bash heads against each other because they always find some interesting stuff to showcase for us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that wonderful stuff that YouTubers always like to remind you about, even though you know about it. And I will see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.